Welcome, Michal. We are so excited to have you.
It's so awesome to be here.
All right, we're going to start this thing out by reading Michal's bio off of the Northwestern website, and it's the reason why you're here, among other reasons. But this is the main reason, so I'll start it off. Ready? I'm gonna skip down to the part we were just talking about. Michal has served as a staff writer on seasons 4 through 7 of the Emmy Award-winning Netflix series The Dragon Prince. Her prose work has been featured in New Myths magazine, as well as Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Tiny Book of Tiny Stories. And her screenwriting is placed highly at competitions such as the Austin Film Festival, Page Awards, CineQuest, and Filmatic Comedy Screenwriting Competition. Wow. Educated in religious schools through the collegiate level, just like Hannah, Michal earned her Master's of Fine Arts, I didn't know that about you, in creative writing from Sarah Lawrence College in 2016. Of course you went there. Michal has ongoing, if inescapably one-sided beef with the Roman Empire. Excuse me? King Henry VIII, and a Sesame Street sketch that scarred her for life.
Can't wait to get to those questions in the podcast.
So last time you were on here, we talked about your beef with Kristen Cole. I'm wondering why he wasn't mentioned in this bio. Is because it was so closely related.
Kristen Cole.
Oh, it was my beef with
remember,
Kristen
it was
Cole.
our beef with Kristen Cole.
Okay, but I thought that I had changed your mind at some point in the process.
No, this is the worst thing about me. But I mean, I think the back half of season 2, totally redeems my point of view on this.
Yikes.
Man.
But not specifically for Kristen Cole only reasons. Is it part of how the landing of season 2 was? Or
Is that when he cut his hair short?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm just saying, he, after whatever battle that was with Rhaenys and everything, yeah, he's a different man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, the vibe changed a little bit.
It's just because he cut his hair.
I mean,
So
listen.
the vibe changed.
So the reason we wanted to talk to you today is because you were recently accepted and have gone through the process of something that we've been hearing about for years, but I've never known anyone to actually be a part of it, and that's the George R.R. Martin Summer Intensive Writing Workshop. And I guess before you respond to any of that, let me just read another bio so we can get all this information for everyone out of the way. The George R.R. Martin Summer Intensive Writing Workshop is an 8-day writing intensive for mid-career journalists, who have a story to tell in the creative realm and want to cross over into writing fictional prose. Medill is committed to identifying a pool of talent, established journalists with an idea for a specific fictional project, and immersing them in a nurturing and supportive environment. We're gonna get into that. Filled with writing time and reflection, we will provide the time, space, guidance, and mentorship for these writers to produce exceptional creative works. GRRM Fellows will have the opportunity to learn from award-winning novelists and writing instructors, as well as attend firesides with publishing industry leaders such as editors and literary agents. Like I said, we've known about this program because we talk about everything to do with George on the show in a very stalker-like fashion, but we've never known anyone on it. So now that you've gone through the entire process this summer, I just wanted to know about the atmosphere and the instructors, the course details, all of the stuff that you went through, and what your expectations were going in, and what they are now that you've left the program.
So I was kind of terrified. I mean, thrilled, but terrified. You know, if you read the rest of the bios of everyone else in the cohort, there are some very impressive people there, and people who've done journalism that isn't I'm real mad about what they did to Sansa Stark on Game of Thrones, you know?
Right.
That has to do with people's actual lives and stuff, and rights and, whatever. And also I've been a little bit out of the journalism game for a while, but everyone was so nice. The whole group really just clicked and vibed. And I mean, this is going to get boring because I have only superlatives to say about the instructors and the environment and the hotel we stayed in, which was amazing. Every part of it was phenomenal. But it was really a really nurturing environment. I think they say that in the thing. It's deeply nurturing.
Can you tell us and kind of start us off with, and this could potentially be for folks who may want to apply themselves, but what was the application process like? And kind of what Zach was saying, did you have any expectations going into it, and kind of what was that initial, hey, I want to do this decision like?
My friend sent it to me, and I was like, well, obviously I have to apply. It's kind of just, there's no choice. No, whether or not I have a chance, there's no choice. And it was a little bit of a long application. They definitely wanted a lot of information about the the project you were working on, like the pages that you had to send in had to be from the project that you were planning on working on in the workshop,
Well, that's cool.
which, meant that you had to have something in progress. I didn't. I Zoom wrote about 30 pages
Oh, man.
at the beginning of my novel.
Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah, and you have to give them like a general, like not a like beat by beat, but a sort of like general idea of the project, like why you want to write that, why you want to work on it, in this particular environment. And and then there's like the personal statements that is always just like, we're not going to tell you what to write, but impress us,
Yeah.
And that's not a dig at this program. Every single personal statement I've ever written has been like that.
That sounds like super, because I was kind of reading through all the different requirements and thinking to myself, it seems a little intense, for lack of a better word. It was talking about how you can't be a published author, you need to have a certain amount of journalism experience, et cetera, et cetera. But it sounds like because it was so intensive, it kind of created this environment of really serious people in the middle of serious work, even if they just wrote it for the application. But very, like you got a serious project that you're working on.
Yeah.
And kind of coming into
definitely.
it with that.
What it also did was like, I think that like everyone being serious is a real thing. I actually had more creative writing experience than a lot of people in the program. It was actually kind of a little bit more geared to like, so you want to write fiction as a journalist, like how do you like start going about that?
Yeah.
Which was like fascinating to even think of just from my like perspective. Because for me, I guess they've never really been that distant,
Not for you, but for some, it might not be an obvious thing.
Exactly. And there was a lot of like, yeah, you can make stuff up. Like, that's fine. Nobody's citing your sources on this one,
I just think it's so cool with George's past for this to be the program that he's supporting.
Yeah, me too.
It was his path as well.
Yeah, it's really unusual, I think. It's because it's not just a like straight writing program. It does have this extra angle. I do feel like you get such interesting people with such cool experiences and like, I didn't know that George started in journalism,
Yeah, he taught journalism.
Yeah, so he went there. He was at the Medill School of Journalism. I've heard because he had some like mixed results about like his fantasy stories in like the regular creative writing classes. Because, he's really part of the reason why fantasy stories and speculative stories of any kind are like considered or given any kind of esteem. And that just wasn't the case when he was in school. But yeah, I think he did go back to teach after. And, yeah, it was very cool. Plus, extra bonus, the school colors are like this incredible purple and it looks great on me. So
such a good color.
We talked about that with him, about being at a stage in the career where you need money. So staying adjacent to what you're working on, but, it not being such like I said, an obvious path for someone's career than to turn into being one of the most influential authors of the time. And so I remember talking to you about it, and I know that you just wanted to be a part of it, if anything, because it was something that he was doing. So I just thought it was so freaking cool when I got the text that you actually got accepted and we're going to be doing this thing. I pull up the website and it's like, there it is. There's your bio right there. Like, that's so cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is it exactly?
Yeah, so walk us through it. What's a day look like there?
Because I see the announcement and we all like see it published, and I believe George's account talks about it on his social media accounts, like acknowledges that it still exists every year, and then it's like crickets. I don't really know what has come out of it for people or like what people have really took away from it.
So that's interesting because it is only 8 days. It's very intense. I guess to describe like, I guess a standard day, we would have, we started at 9, we would have, which I had to rearrange my sleep schedule a little bit.
Change your life completely.
Yeah.
Look, I do this all the time.
Yeah, I was like, breakfast? What is this? So we started at 9, we would have a craft class. So there were like 3 instructors for the specific workshops, and one of them would give a talk. They each gave 2 talks, and that would sometimes involve it would always involve discussion in the class, but sometimes it would involve like exercises and, reading out loud and stuff like that. Then we would have a little break. And then we went into our workshops. And so there were 10 people in the whole program. And I mean, in a normal like MFA or whatever, like 10 people in a workshop is pretty small. But we broke up into smaller groups because there were 3. So one group had 4 and then 2 had 3. And I was in one of the 3, and it was just so intense. And so like you felt like in a good way, like you were almost having surgery, and had all that attention on your work. And I mean, also to do it for other people, honestly, is just such a joy. Like the writing was all such high quality that like getting to discuss it. This is my like writer's room like TV person coming out, but like getting to discuss something like that collaboratively, whether I wrote it or whether someone else wrote it, and to like work on it and tear it apart. And, like this is working up until this tiny little place where it like sputters a bit, but you can just prop that up in this way or whatever. It was so enlivening and just positive. Yeah. And it was funny because I like go in to the George R.R. Martin Summer Intensive Writers Program being like, everyone here is going to be a nerd. And no.
So did half of them not even watch GOT?
A lot of people had not watched it. Most people, I think, had not read the books. And so my little cohort, we were taught by the amazing Tananarive Due, who's a horror writer. And she was kind of like the speculative group. So it was me with my fantasy novel, and then someone else with a sort of like collection of like supernatural horror stories. That's being reductive, but that was sort of what we were working on with him. And then, a sci-fi, novel. And like everyone, I'm telling you, everyone else was historical, like real historical, or like contemporary plus historical. It was like real serious, like important, like fiction. And I was just here being like, and then the demon did this.
I don't know. It's pretty important to me. That's kind of interesting to me, though, because when I first heard about the program, I just assumed it would be people who were very interested in George's work who would apply or who would see it. And I know Northwestern has such a robust program, so it makes sense that you'd have people from all different walks of life participating. But in my mind, it was
a bunch of fans.
Yeah. Just like trying to get a chance to
meet the guy.
Yeah.
Or get like his a little bit of a secret
Protege.
Sauce, like put across your
Exactly.
like inside of your work as well.
Exactly. I can see though how it would be beneficial to have such a wide swath of creative minds in the room, but I just had this picture of a bunch of fantasy people.
You're like the only one
together.
that slipped through, it sounds like, Michal.
Yeah, you made it.
I mean, I sort of made a name for myself. Like,
good.
And I was expounding on my theories on like George and him as a writer, and like, and yeah. But it was kind of funny because I think Night of the Seven Kingdoms did come up slightly.
Oh, cool.
And of course, so I had to like explain like what that is, and yes, no, that's actually not finished either.
The kinds of stories that you just spoke about, the 3 different that were in your specific cohort, that amount of texture is so cool. Like I bet it was fun being able to jump from those different genres while you guys were piecing or tearing apart each other's words.
It really was, and it helped us. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but like, if you're reading someone else's horror work, like that can help you lean into like the horror elements in your own story,
right?
And like the sci-fi story was like, oh well, maybe I need, it was a very kind of like, well, actually, I won't say, I don't want to, give any details without permission, but like it does let you think about your own story in a different way and like see what other elements can work there. And also everyone was telling them from very different like POVs. So yeah, it was honestly amazing. And it was kind of funny because we were in those small groups, but we were all like really close as a general cohort. We all kept being like, wait, I want to read everyone else's stuff, and I wanted to hear, what they're working on. And it like at a certain point, it just kind of became like a Okay, we'll just have to later. We'll just have to do it. We had a little graduation thing at the end where we all read something that we had written, and it was really illuminating because except for the two other people in my group, I hadn't read anybody else's work, and like knowing them after such an intense week, and then hearing what they wrote was like really revealing and interesting, and like kind of way cooler than if I had just read it like flat.
Right, of course. So just that alone, I feel like is worth the cost of the stress of potentially applying.
Yeah. Oh, I can't recommend applying strongly enough. Like really, it's an incredible program, and they really, they cradle you for if you want to be cradled as a writer for 8 days. Like,
Did they have any
please.
deliverables for you or any requirements that you delivered while you were there to finish the thing out?
No. So Tanana Reeve, our instructor, did want us to have kind of like a short story concept to go forward with, whether or not that was related to what we were working on in the group. And I actually started a short story that I'm hopefully going to finish soon. But that was just kind of our little group because it's like she, I think very wisely, and I know George got his start in short stories, like said, it's a lot easier to publish a short story than it is to publish a novel. It's a lot easier to finish a short story, and it does build up its own momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't remember where George said this, but like I think he was talking about how like, young like kid writers, not children, but young writers would come up to him and be like, here's my 9-book epic fantasy series and whatever, and he would be like, start with a short story, like so that's I try to keep that in mind, but yeah, other than having like something to read at the end, that was really all, because it was so, if it was like a year-long program or a 6-month program, I think there would have been more deliverables like that, but
Right.
it was so short. It was really about like kind of training yourself into the writing mode and gaining confidence and gaining tools, and gaining, a cohort, which is just invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you talk a little bit more maybe about some of the takeaways that you had? Because obviously you come into this with experience in multiple different areas. What do you, maybe it's too broad of a question, but like, are there specific things like you've taken away from this workshop that you've then implemented in other aspects of your writing, whether it's on a short story or a novel or TV or journalism, kind of all the different genres?
So we had a conversation with George, which was a thrill, like beyond. And one of the things he said was, and I never imagined that he would feel this way, but he said like he used to, when he was a younger writer, start projects and be like, this is the best. This idea is the one. Like, this is perfect. It's amazing. All I have to do is put down the words and it's done and finished and perfect. And then he would get to the middle and he would start seeing the flaws and the problems with it and the logic gaps and blah, 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 and just not want to write it. And he would stop. And then another idea would come in and be the one, and that is very much something that I struggle with, like, especially in prose. Like almost to the letter, I will be like, this is it. This is the idea. This is perfect, and then I'll a month and a half later, I'm like, this is garbage, makes no sense, it's blah, 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 and he said, don't stop. Like, you have to finish the things. Don't let that voice, I'm paraphrasing here now, but like, don't let that voice be the one that dominates what you produce, or don't produce. Like, I literally wrote it down. George said, don't stop.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Really it's advice that other people say, but hearing it from him in that environment must have really made an impact.
Especially because he's written, just forget all the like influence, whatever, like the sheer number of words that this man has written that are amazing
just open fire
and readable.
And blood that no one really expected or required of him, but sitting beside me right now, like, thankfully he did.
So that was I think the main thing. And look, have I been perfect about it? No, I'm kind of like, I was like really on a high a little bit after, and like really plugging forward on like plotting out my novel, and then kind of fell off the wagon a little
Life
bit.
happened.
Now I'm finishing the short story, and hopefully we'll get back to the novel and start writing stuff.
So it's two different balls in the air then?
It is two different balls in the air. And then in the middle, I cheated on the other short story with a different short story.
But it feels so good starting a new thing, huh?
It does.
You're like, I don't have to do the heavy lifting on that one thing I was in the middle of.
Exactly. And this has to be short, so it doesn't have that much logic in it. And it's all, and that actually, another thing I really, like, empathize. I mean, it feels, I've barely published anything. Like, it feels weird for me to say, like, I empathize with George R. R. Martin. But, like, when he talks about, like, things that just come out of you, and like the Hedge Knight being easy to write, like, sometimes that does happen. And, like, this other short story, like, it wasn't perfect, like, I still had to, like, grind my teeth a little bit over it, but I wrote it in, like, a week, and I was, like, really, really happy with it. So I'm getting some, like, feedback on that now, and then just like, okay, let's go back to this other short story that I thought was going to be easy and, is not easy. And, like, knowing that he has that experience too. I mean, honestly, I think you read The Hedge Knight and you can just tell, like, it's
you really
so
can.
liquid,
Yeah.
It is.
We talk about it all the time just amongst ourselves about the things that we like. You can, sometimes you listen to an album or you watch a series or you read a book or a story and it feels like it was always meant to exist.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened to funnel out through that artist. And so,
and in that specific field,
yeah,
whether it's a song or whether it's even the day of filming something, like, you can really tell when a sequence in a TV show worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, they looked like they were having a really good time that day.
If only you could channel that 24/7.
Yeah.
365. That would be nice. I thought it was funny because when I was going through the website, it was like, you are not guaranteed to meet George R. R. Martin at this, which is a hilarious disclaimer, especially knowing now that it's not really fans that are going to this. It's just writers in general. But would love to know a little bit more about him.
So, I mean, it was definitely not guaranteed. Like, I think it came together, like, fairly last minute, and is obviously, like, highly dependent on his schedule and what, he's available to do. And so I do think, like, I think you shouldn't apply to it being like, I'm going to get in with George R. R. Martin.
Right.
This is what it takes. I'll become a writer just to talk to George.
But yeah, I mean, it was an amazing conversation. He's like, George, like, you give him, like, 5 words and he'll just,
bless
pulled
you
forth.
Yeah.
And, like, stuff that happened so long ago and all these stories. I was waiting for him to tell the story of his friend. I don't mean to make light, but his friend who was a short story writer who died at 40, at his keyboard. He didn't tell us that one, but, like, there were definitely stories that I was like, okay, this one went down. Okay. Like, I was, noting, but yeah, it was just such an honor, like, being among so many talented people, like, to begin with, and then just to have that, like, little extra bit of validation that, like, obviously this wasn't a one-on-one, it wasn't personal. Like, I don't know how much George could even, like, see any of us from the Zoom because we were all, like, in a big classroom, sitting around a big table, but, like, just to have that validation that, like, he thought it was worth his time to, like, spend some time talking, to some writers.
Just having the opportunity to come together with him as a creative and have that type of dialogue or that type of interaction and ability to learn from him as a creative, I think would be such a neat experience because you're not only getting this is stories about how I came to be, but you're kind of getting some of the nitty gritty. Like, we're all creatives here.
Talking shop.
Yeah, talking shop. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. That's such a neat experience to be able to have that.
Yeah, and I mean, it was, again, like, just such an honor, and, like, I don't know if he'll ever read my work. I hope he will, but, like, if that's the main point of, like, artistic contact that I have with George, like, it was still, tremendous. Like, we wrote, like, thank you notes to, like, all the instructors and everybody at the end, and I wrote, like, thank you for changing my life twice, because he literally has, like, A Song of Ice and Fire changed my life, back in 2004. I mean, really, it's 3 times because Game of Thrones changed my life again, but, like, and now this, and, like, just to to think that that's something that I get to do is like, or have is like kind of an out of body experience. Like you guys know me, I crouch behind my computer most of the time, but like I'm like gremlin, but to come out into the world a little bit and have this experience on the Northwestern campus, which is gorgeous in the summer. I mean, I did say, like, I am never going there after, like, October 15th. Between, like, October 15th and, like, May 1st.
Like,
that's it.
Probably so cold, yeah.
Yeah, and it's right by the lake. And the lake in the summer is gorgeous. We had a gorgeous view. And I was like, this would be absolute hell.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
I am not that, like, inculcated into the cold. But yeah, like, on that campus, like, we also, like, it wasn't just George, like we had like nightly conversations with, other authors and people in the publishing industry. And, a lot of them had like journalism experience too. And it was like really so calibrated, I guess, to be like, to give as much as it possibly could, the program. I need a shout out, Sharo Lulian Tan, who is in charge of it. And she is like, phenomenal, like really the number of balls that were in the air. People are coming internationally, obviously, like it's
right.
Feeding everybody every day.
Was she an instructor or in the program, or
so
was she
she
just
didn't actually teach. She's an instructor at Northwestern in journalism. She didn't teach a class, although I think she might want to. Like, I think that might be something like at some point that gets integrated, and that would be amazing. Yeah, she read a little bit of her novel to us, and like that was amazing. Like, also just hearing her read it.
So it was like a labor of love from her just to see the program, like to work that well fluidly.
Yeah, very much.
Sounds like the most awesome summer camp.
Yeah, I'm jelly.
For adults ever.
It really was, and it was also like I was so tired. It really felt like summer camp. Just I happened to be in a hotel. Mm-hmm. Every night at like 11, I was like, I am falling over. I'm going to bed.
It's such a vulnerable experience. Like, you're pouring yourself into this creative thing. I can imagine.
Yeah, and like reading other people's work and coming up with what you want to say to them about it is like also another layer of work.
Super personal too.
Exactly. And I love doing it, but it it takes time and whatever. And yeah, summer camp is kind of a good way of putting it. It's that very like heightened, very like you get very close to people very quickly. And you are sharing like, your work, which is, whether it's fantasy or nobody was writing nonfiction, but like fantasy or realistic fiction. It's still very close to your heart and your identity, especially if you haven't published before.
Right.
Whatever. It was a very intense and thoughtful experience.
Like I said before, I'm glad that you got to have it because I know how like interested you are in space and how much you've worked to be a part of it. So hell yeah. High five. I'm glad that they put intensive in the title as well. I went to one summer camp when I was a kid, yes. And they're like, you guys are going to cry when you leave. Yeah. And we were all bawling.
Yeah, that's what makes it so awesome. I was at summer camp when you guys did the Sir Kristen Cole episode.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
I was running summer camp, so I get it.
I guess you're not even really needing to quote anything you learned from the course, but just in your personal experience, how's it been writing the novel and the short story versus being in a writer's room and putting lines together and atmosphere together, building the world on TV?
So it's actually really interesting because Tanana Reeve, my instructor, and I had like a little bit of an ongoing argument about like whether screenwriting was easier than prose. And I am firmly on the like screenwriting is easier than prose. Mm-hmm. Train, like I find it much more like much less ironically, there is more pressure on each word in a screenplay because it really has to be a certain length, especially when you're writing for TV. But it felt much more freeing to me. And also I love being in the writer's room so much and, sharing ideas. Like, it's really like watching like people paint a mural and like getting to see each part of it come together. And it happens over a long period of time, but like every so often you can look back at something in the finished product and be like, oh my God, I remember the first time someone was like, what if we did XYZ? And that became like a whole thing or a whole character arc, or MacGuffin. And the opposite happens too. Like if like sometimes things get cut that like everyone was really like rooting for a long time, but that's kind of part of the experience.
Yeah.
So I prefer group work.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it sounds like you have to do that for yourself or with yourself when you're writing the novels or the short stories.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a lot of the middle part that George was talking about. That's difficult to cross because you have to do that to yourself rather than it being collaborative.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not good at, or haven't gotten good yet. Maybe I'll get good at some point, but like at George's, gardening thing, because it scares me. Like I'm just like, I can't imagine writing that many words. And then you realize like, oh, this is a great plot line that I can pluck from this and put in something else. But the rest of it, I can't really use, It's very scary to me. And the fact that he can do that is like, I mean, I kind of agree that that's the best way to write, but like, everybody's got to do what they can.
Well, there's like the Mona Lisa, and then there's all of Bob Ross's paintings with his
Exactly.
on purpose happy
Right.
little accidents.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of, I find I have to trick myself a lot into being like, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to read it. It doesn't matter if it sucks. You'll fix it later. Like, every so often I write something that I think is like really good or an opening that I think is amazing. And then it's just, it's the rest of the project. It's getting to the end. And like, I'm aware that there's an irony in talking about this, like in relation to George, but like, I think that, and nothing that I have or probably ever will write will like even compare to what George is experiencing with A Song of Ice and Fire. And I don't know, just knowing that it is objectively hard, doesn't make it less hard, but occasionally like you can step back and be like, it's not just you, you're not a bad writer, people are rooting for you. Like that, that was a big thing. Like just not that I have so many people in my everyday life who are rooting for me as a writer, but like, just when you meet a bunch of random people who you've never met before, and the only reason you're all together is because you all got into this program, and to have them believe in you is like, it's a different kind,
Yeah, 100%.
I can imagine too, going between the two, writing for your own personal or more of this prose style and then writing for TV is probably difficult to jump between the two because you're in a writer's room, and I've never been in a writer's room in my life, but I can imagine the collaborative environment and that everyone's kind of picking up the pieces and workshopping ideas and kind of playing off each other when meanwhile you're sitting at your computer by yourself in your own head,
like, worried about
why am I even doing this? You don't have anybody to look at that's agreeing with the joke you wrote or typing out the ideas as you're free flowing. So I obviously think that writing for television and scripts is very neat for the collaboration effort, but I just think it is so. I don't know why the word honorable is coming to my head, but it's just very admirable. Same thing. It's very admirable to me, the discipline that it takes to kind of sit down and self-motivate and say, I can get through this, and I can put this very vulnerable thing on paper. So I can see the sympathy. I mean, I think about George doing that all the time with Winds and the gardening effect. You write Winds 4 times over and you don't think it's good enough, and that's just got to be such a scary place to be with the amount of pressure at that level.
Yeah, I honestly can't even like fathom it. I've tried to put myself in that place a couple times, and it just like it really freaks me out. It takes a tremendous amount of strength to. Okay, here's the thing. I think people who are not writers, which is understandable because they're not writers, think that it's just easier than it is. Like even if they
Sure.
give lip service to it being hard, like it when you write something that you're like, I'm not happy with this, it's like looking in a mirror and seeing like you like after not having slept for 5 days and like with whatever, you just crawled out of a garbage chute, like it's the worst possible version of you. It's kind of like you are bad, even though of course that is not what that means, but like and that's true for me when like 5 people read my stuff, I can't even imagine George like the pressure of not, of not wanting to disappoint, but also wanting to stay true to his own vision, but also and also just artistically wanting it to match what he wants it to be.
On top of the TV show.
Exactly.
There,
Yeah.
I mean,
lurking.
now look, obviously he's an extraordinarily wealthy man, and so there is that as a consolation.
Yeah,
You will
But-
figure it out.
yeah. But I don't think we should underestimate how difficult, that is day in and day out. And sometimes you can't write every day. It would be great if George was sitting down and working on lids every day, but that is just not how creativity works sometimes.
I'm personally happy that he's putting this much thoughtfulness into what comes next. Seeing
sure.
wins being done in such a careful way gives me a lot of hope that it's going to be a masterpiece. And I that's where my expectations are. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And all 5 of the other books in the A Song of Ice and Fire series have delivered in varying ways. They haven't repeated themselves. And they've been novel in their concepts, and we've all of us that are in the fan community have been piecing those books apart for well over a decade, and no one's gotten bored enough to really stop. Definitely not to quit at all. And so like I said, I've just been really happy that he's been taking his time with it. I know a lot of people probably don't want that, but I think about the way that Hallows finished out the Potter series, and I wish that she had taken more time in some places.
We could have used
book.
a couple years between book 6 and book 7.
Yeah, a couple more years at least.
Yeah,
and I think the same thing about the films as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm not necessarily a fan of when people are able to rush things out end over end, but at the same time, I really loved the year after year effort of the Game of Thrones TV show. And that gave some pretty impressive results and did a lot for the fantasy genre on TV, but also giving all of us a thing to be excited about every year. So there's 2 different ways to look at it at all times. Would Winds coming out in 2015 have changed things for the better more than it is now? I'm not sure. I don't really know.
Yeah, it would be interesting to peer into that alternate universe, but I guess there's also something to be said about and look, like I said, I've been reading these books since 2004. I really, really want Winds. But there is something to be said about getting what the author wants you to read, and Fire and Blood definitely felt like that. I feel like if he was struck by inspiration for another Duncan Egg novella, personally, that's my theory. I think we are way more likely to get a Duncan Egg novella sooner than Winds.
Let's go.
We were just talking about that.
Let's go with that, though.
We were
Come
just
on.
talking
No
about
one's going to
that.
be disappointed about that at all.
No.
Yeah. Especially now with the show coming out, and it gives them more runway and just new material for us to chew over and destroy with our teeth endlessly.
Set up more things for Winds within that book as well.
Definitely. It's more
God.
content. We're here for it.
Okay, so what do you think about the trailer for Nine of the Seven Kingdoms?
Oh, it was so good. I was
Alright.
nervous because you don't know what to expect,
Sure.
Of course the actors look incredibly charming and the pictures look good and whatever, but it's still a new thing, and it has to be functionally different than Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, which are so serious and so grand. And yeah, they nailed the tone, they nailed the look, they all the characters look incredible. I'm just so excited. It's so good. It's just a damn good novella. The way it crescendos over and over and over again until you reach that peak. And then so good. So yeah, I am absolutely thrilled by the trailer, and I'm super excited for the show. I mean, I guess it's good that it's only 6 half-hour episodes, but I definitely feel like I will be wanting more.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
But it makes me think that they're really sticking to what he wrote, because that's how we broke it down for the show, and about the same chunks when we were doing talking about it on the podcast. We tried to break into where those sort of logical themes like sort of ended and then it moved on to the next point. And I think that that's what you would do episodically, at least. And so just from the way that I've read it over and over, I've kind of saw it, at least the Hedge Knight for sure, and that 6 chunk. Mystery Knight with a few more, but we were just texting about this. Mystery Knight being completely different as a structure is going to be super interesting to see because we've got all the Checky Water nonsense to get through in the Sworn Sword. So that's going to be so the high point, I think, of GOT television. Truly will be, I think. But the Mystery Knight is a little different. Like it's much more talky and in your face and way more intimate. And I think that's going to be really cool to see how that's split up and if it'll still stick to that 6-episode format or not.
Well, Mystery Knight is also, it's a mystery, you know, it has to be filmed almost like a Rian Johnson movie, you know, with like, this is what's going on here when you weren't looking there. And, hopefully we'll get to explore this in a couple of years, but like, I am very excited.
It's going to happen.
Very excited.
I was talking recently. It's going to happen. I don't know if people have been paid for it, but they have greenlit it, so clearly they really like what they've seen from the first season. And so that's a really good sign.
It's very exciting.
But we're all going to know in January.
January 18th.
So like so far away. While you're here, like what are you thinking about Hot D season 3? We're going to start out in the gullet and it's going to be in the same year that we get the full flourish of the Hedge Knight. So the fan community is going to be sated in some way. The people that like the GOT universe that are TV viewers are going to have, if they watched it, something to throw around in their heads as well and maybe get extra excited for Hot D. Like, where do you think we're all at with it, keeping in mind the gap and all that?
Did you guys watch the D&D movie with Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite part of that movie is when they fight the fat dragon. And like, I'm imagining our fandom as like the fat dragon.
Oh no.
Which is rare for us, but like we will be feasting.
Yeah, and listen, the third show is looks like it's going to be good too from that trailer. Usually whenever something is being taken from a book series for a third time on a TV network, usually at that point it's phoned in, but it doesn't look like it is. So I think we're going to be the fattest dragon.
Yeah, I think so. My only problem, and I texted you this, is like, not problem. I'm a little concerned that like your average normie person will just see like clips of the trailer or bits of like footage or whatever and assume that it's season 2 of the other Game of Thrones show and not a new Game of Thrones show, because like they don't all look that different. If you're any given kind of frame will kind of look the same because it's, Westeros.
Sure.
So I do wonder if it'll miss some people who like either never watched or fell off House of the Dragon and they'll just be like, oh, that's the new season of whatever. I'm not watching that. Hopefully not. Hopefully they'll be able to make as big of a splash.
If so, they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
By making the gaps.
Yes.
It's no fault of GRRM for that because he's been
absolutely.
super on their ass.
That's nobody's fault. That's just like, but how many franchises have 3 different shows, 2 of which are running simultaneously? I mean, unless it's Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars,
right.
Really. But the same thing happened with Star Wars. You had one that people felt was like really hitting the notes at the time, and then there was another one that was not delivering at the same level, and people were just like, well, at least we're still getting Star Wars. But I really feel like the Hedge Knight is going to be on the level, and I don't know, I think in some ways might eclipse what we're seeing on the other successor show. Maybe
it could. I mean, it has a much smaller there's a much smaller ask of it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But like I mean, I'm just continually like, not that I feel bad, but like House of the Dragon is a very, very difficult show to put together, and like it got off to a good start, but like there's no way around the fact that we were like skipping through like 20 years of time, and I still hear people talking about like when I was in line for the George panel, for the Hedge Knight panel at New York Comic Con, Night of the Seven Kingdoms panel, people were talking about like, oh yeah, like it was too confusing, I couldn't follow it, and like to shift from that mode of storytelling. Yeah, in season 1.
Oh, interesting.
And then to shift from that mode to season 2, which obviously was like controversial in its own ways, I feel like it's got a lot, on its plate. And not that Knight of the Seven Kingdoms doesn't, but, they're just also like a lot more quotes that they can use and bits of dialogue that they can pull directly from. And, I don't know, I have a very warm spot in my heart for House of the Dragon, because after Game of Thrones, I sort of thought I was like never gonna I felt a little burned, no pun intended. And I really think it's a show that is by no means perfect, but like puts its female characters front and center, just has a lot of is way closer to the visuals of what I wanted Game of Thrones to be. And that is what it is. Like, they were making decisions in 2011 and 2012. Like, I'm not, it's not a knock on Game of Thrones, but it happens to be when I saw oh my God, the carriages and the beautiful dresses and the dragons looking so great. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the tournaments, that weren't all just 10 people in mud,
So good.
It does happen to me.
The Kingswood was.
I keep wondering,
perfect.
When George is oh, we did our first, the first tourney filmed at night, and I am actually within the world, why is it at night?
Yeah, exactly.
It would take a lot of money to burn that many torches so that people could have a chance of seeing this.
Yeah. The atmosphere does not lend itself.
That's why I was thinking maybe
exactly.
It's a training session or something that's happening at night. Like, maybe they're trying to get their crap together before the Trial of the Seven.
Or it's an at dawn. It's like Trial of Seven only takes place at dawn, at the very early.
And that makes sense, sure, but that's not at night though. That's a completely different.
It's gonna be like the long night episode where everyone has to turn up the brightness on their screen.
People's TVs are going to be way better now than they were back in 2019.
That's true. That was a tell if you had a good TV or not.
It really was. All this stuff's
I did not see most of that episode, and
I agree with what you're saying about Hot D completely, and I do love the show, and I think that
we loved it
from a high fantasy angle that they're nailing it, and I absolutely love the info dump, which is not the most sensitive way to put it, but all of the visions that we got in Harrenhal, and getting to see the Green Men and getting to see Brendan Rivers, and I'm not annoyed at all by the dagger thing. I know that as a plot device, as a literal object, it's a little bit heavy in some ways to wrap your mind around it and to go, okay, this isn't dumb, but the concept around it and the torch that it's embodying to carry forward in the future, I think absolutely rules. And that's what I wanted from GOT from the start.
Right.
So that kind of stuff doesn't rub me the wrong way at all. I feel like if we would have gotten the gullet in season 2, that it would have been critically more received for everyone. And I think that unfortunately, I'm not the only kind of person that's watching the show, and we really have to please everybody. And whenever the ship is risen by everyone's praise, then we all just have a little bit more fun with it. When think about how GOT ended and how much of a bummer that was for a lot of people. It was still good, but it wasn't as triumphant as it was in the earlier seasons when GRRM was still working on the show.
Yeah, very much. I do have a theory about the cat's paw dagger, actually.
More of a theory, really?
Well, I sort of think, how Egg carries around a seal in his boot?
Oh God, yeah, he does. Yeah,
I think that's going to be his I'm a Targaryen bitch.
Interesting. If it's
and you can keep a dagger in a boot.
Seal in the boot.
No, yeah. I swear to you, if I see a glimmer of that on my screen in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, if I see the hilt,
please put it in there.
I'm gonna be so.
Please put it in there. Now that's all I want to say.
I'm gonna crash out if that is.
Is that a real theory, or are you just trolling everybody?
No, I actually really think they might do it. It depends if they decide to play into the whole transmission of the prophecy and all that stuff.
I mean,
sure,
but if they do.
Cool.
If they do, I think that's how they're going to do it.
I think the continuity between series
would be neat.
Would be pretty cool. I do really like the idea of, I know we're all in Westeros for all of these stories, but to have a very physical representation, bridging the divide between generations on generations that is pretty neat.
And think about the symbolism of it, right? If the whole point of Dunk and Egg is kind of that Egg is sort of divested of his Targaryen-ness, right? And the reason he becomes such a good king is because of that, and because he has these human normal experiences for years and years. And if he's carrying around that symbol of the Targaryen, like, the ultimate end of everything, with him accidentally because nobody knows that it's important. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the whole cat's paw dagger thing, but the symbolism is pretty juicy.
It's got a lot of meaning.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, it's happening, so either we embrace it as a good idea
exactly.
or we don't.
I mean, but at continuity's sake, I mean, that's what Arya had in her hands when she cut down the King of Winter himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, when we saw it on I think it was in a trailer for season 2 for House of the Dragon, I just was fuming when I saw it for the first time.
Like I said, I like it. I think it's just that it's a literal dagger, and it's really just the way they've shot it.
Yes.
Every time it comes on the screen, it's like perfectly center, and they're like holding it out for no reason, like half the time. So that was really it, and that was at the end of season 1. But after,
okay.
If it was just a little bit more casual when it was on screen, I think.
Yeah.
Like if I could just see it and I had to point it out myself, then it'd be, if I discovered it on screen myself, I'd be like, look at that.
Well, yeah, it was in that. It was the season 1. The trailer. I just felt like the trailer that we got at some point featured it for 50 seconds out of the 2 minutes of the trailer. It was just sick moves of the dagger, like going around. That's what it was in my brain. But that's a good theory. I actually do like that.
I'm just saying, if it's not, it's not. But that's how I think they're gonna like tie everything together. Because also it would kind of make sense to me that like Maekar might have Egg's dad. Like maybe he's going through Baylor's stuff and he's like, take this, like, or whatever. Like there's a lot of debate about where the transmission ended as far as this prophecy. So like, I don't know. I think it could be kind of cool, but I agree with you. It comes with a lot of salt when you add it into anything, and it's best used very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just the way it was shot for me. Because now that we're sitting and talking about it, it's just more fun to read everybody's tweets and go, whatever about that. But at the same time, like the continuity would be satisfying as hell.
Well, then you think about other spin-off series and other prequels, sequels, etc. How that could potentially come into play.
And you wish other stuff did something like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
I will say, I think the coolest use of the dagger was probably the poster for season 1, where like, and it's exactly what you said, Zach. Like we just kind of had to notice it, where like it was the pupil of the dragon. And that was really cool once you realized it. But it also wasn't like you could totally appreciate that poster or whatever without knowing that the dagger was there or what the dagger was. Or
I forgot
anything.
about that. That is cool. And it's so cool what happens with Bran with the dagger too.
Yeah.
We can go into long reasons, but I can't believe you brought that up. Now we're talking about that.
Which, look, loops us back around to George, because this is now a major like plot, like crux of these stories that does not exist in the books,
Right.
Maybe it's for the best though, because the show, especially toward the end, needed something.
Oh, definitely. I think it's for the best. But like, presumably it's Lightbringer, right, in the books?
Yeah.
But that doesn't have like all the Targaryen history and stuff like that. Unless maybe it does, and
we just don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, seriously, with the amount of theorizing we could do about what would make a Lightbringer at this point, I mean, we have zero answers. But I mean, if that's what it is in the show, that's what it is. And that's okay. But like I said, it's a different universe. So it's okay that would be what it is.
How many children did Scarlett O'Hara have, guys?
Who's Scarlett O'Hara?
You know who Scarlett O'Hara
that's
is?
what George uses for for his like, are the books true or is the show true? Like, because in the movie she has like 1 kid and in the books she has 2. And...
Yeah, that seems like not a big detail. I mean, but if we're going to start talking about people's kids in the show adaptations, we're going to get into Nettles. We're going to get into what's going on with Daron.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, I bet you are. You're like, we could talk for another 2 hours on that.
I mean, really, like I really do love House of the Dragon. Like it's a problematic show. There are definitely things that do not work about it, and also like some of them that are artistically, at least as far as I can tell, like their fault, and some things like HBO being like, this has to be 8 episodes. that are not their fault. But I don't know. It really is like the closest I've felt to like real non-schlocky, like high fantasy on TV.
Yeah.
And,
I agree with that.
the dialogue is just really beautiful. It really is.
It really is. And there's so many scenes that are shot absolutely stunningly.
Damon on the bridge at Dragonstone.
Damon, period. There's when I
pointing
think about
the sword, that is high fantasy art on TV.
When I think about Hadi, I think about Damon. Like, I think that
I think of Kristen Cole.
Just such a standout character. But it's one of those things where we can exist in the gray area. We can look at the reasons why we maybe aren't too happy with what's going on the screen and also really love it and be really hype about it, you know? That's just as fun.
At least we're not unhappy about necessarily what we're seeing. It's more just like what we're not seeing, you know?
Yeah.
Sure. And we're always going to be a little critical because we have such high hopes and dreams.
And are weird about it.
We're weird about it. We know too much about it. We care too much about it.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I'm very nervous about in Night of the Seven Kingdoms is because
me too.
For some reason, and I understand the reason, we're all very emotionally attached and like very personally.
Because of that liquid that Michal talked about.
Yeah, very personally attached
true.
to Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Like I think all of us, I just was so blown away reading it, how much it very personally like sat inside of me. I think everybody feels that way about it. And so I didn't feel that way about Fire and Blood, not even for a second.
Yeah.
I did with Jaehaerys and Ally
and they're meant to evoke different, you know, emotions from you.
Right.
But like it's still I agree. There is a certain amount of like, oh, if they change XYZ in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it might hurt more than
if they take my Checky water away.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what kind of crack George put in that story, but it's gonna be one that's gonna be interesting to see the adaptation just because I care so much about it. So I'm looking forward to that big time. Okay, before we let you go, I think one thing that I find so cool about the work that you do is that you took all of this love for pop culture and you turned it into a career. And so do you have any advice? I'm sure there's many people potentially in the audience who have similar experiences or who are looking for similar career paths. What is your advice to those people?
You know, I would say like make connections, you know, go to conventions, meet people, be nice, be normal.
Within reason.
And also and put out good work, you know, like if you have a podcast, you know, that you can refer people to, or a blog, or I'm going to be referring to blogs when like nobody remembers what they are, but like just put your stuff out there, you know, make it good. I will say, and this is something that like I think is really easy to do. It was certainly really easy for me to do in a bad way early on, and that is like to trash things. And that doesn't mean like don't be critical of art that you're reviewing. But I think if you would like to make inroads in creative fields, it's probably not the best to be like, this is the worst thing ever and they did it on purpose, you know, because nobody does that, you know. That's, you know, as much as I, you know, object to a lot of the end of Game of Thrones, I think that it was because they were at the end of their ropes and, you know, had been going nonstop for 8 years, not because it was, you know, because they wanted to ruin the story. So yeah, be generous as far as that goes. And it's a little bit of a shame that a lot of the bigger platforms like Twitter and things that people used to make connections on are like really less useful now. But like, you know, follow people on Instagram, see what they're up to, you know, keep watching what they do, you know, like nobody loves anything more than like putting out something small and, you know, that doesn't get enough like Netflix, you know, eyes or whatever. And then, you know, you go up to them and say like, hey, I really love this. It meant a lot to me for whatever reason. Like that is a great way to start conversations. And yeah, like keep working on your own work. Like, you know, like George said, like, don't stop. Just take breaks if you need, but don't stop.
Joke's on you. This is the end of the podcast, everybody. we're going to stop.
But seriously, thank you so much for coming on and for chatting with us. And this is the first time I've actually been on the show with you. So
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so awesome.
so it's been really fun to chat with you. So thank you.
Yeah.
We've got Hot D to look forward to. We've got Night of the Seven Kingdoms to look forward to. We'll have to...
We got Wins a Winner to look forward to.
That too. We'll have to bring you back on whenever that stuff starts to get in the mix.
Oh, hell yeah.